Marshall in the middle.
Here we go again. Welcome, fellas. Welcome back. And welcome to the audience back to the NBC room. I'm not exactly in any stationary room. I'm in a hotel room today on the traveling trip business. We're here with Big Dog, Nate Dog, Rain, yes sir, and we got First Sergeant Marshall Top. We we are live, full in effect. Yep, with the gaggles and the baffles all together. And, I had a guy, a friend of mine that I'm cool with, man. He's I guess he's still like a lefty, right? He's been catching our shows, right? And he said to me, he was like, "Bro, do you ever find anything wrong with the Trump? Do they always do things right to you?" And I had to tell him, I said, "Look, man, you know, it's not that they don't do anything wrong. Like I spoke out on numerous things in the show. If you actually watched it, that I might disagree with here and there, but I wanted to open up this show a little differently today and pull out some devil's advocate stuff. Something that I can actually say that yes, I don't understand or no, I don't agree with. Off the rip on what we're talking about with Iran, and I want to get you guys' perspective on these topics too. So the first thing I want to play, if you'll do this, Top, share my screen. Tell me if you hear this. I think they did a great right here on Meet the Press. They did a great job of like highlighting some of my concerns in the first like 2 minutes. So,
Cannot hear it. Cannot hear
can
it.
I hear it? All
Nope.
right. Let me reshare it. I didn't share the sound. All right. Share screen. Tired. There we go. Check me out now.
I gotta say, this is fun what you come up with every week, Ray. It's fun, man.
Oh yeah.
Hey man, we do what we can when we can.
Its latest proposal, as President Trump insists Iran wants to make a deal to end the war, and as we're now learning new details about the president's abrupt reversal on his plan to help guide ships through the Strait of Hormuz. This latest round of negotiations comes as President Trump has claimed for months now that Iran is eager to make a deal to end the war.
But they're tough and they want to fight. And they're calling, they're saying, how do we make a deal?
They called. I didn't call. They called. They want to make a deal.
Well, they want to make a deal so badly. You have no idea how badly they want to make a deal. They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal. They are negotiating. They're begging to make a deal. They're begging to make a deal. They'd like to make a deal very badly. I mean, Iran is dying to make a deal. I can only tell you that.
Doing very well with regard to Iran. Again, they want to make a deal. They're decimated.
They want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours, and it's very possible that we'll make a deal.
Now, a spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry telling state TV that Tehran is still reviewing the latest proposal and has yet to reach a conclusion and has not given the U.S.
And with that, one more little clip.
Okay.
To drive the point home from another perspective.
Officials telling Fox News the U.S. is closer to resuming Iranian combat operations than it was just 24 hours ago. This after Tehran reportedly fired on U.S. vessels in the Strait of Hormuz and launched more than a dozen missiles and drones at the UAE oil facilities. There was injuries and there was damage. President Trump telling Fox News chief foreign correspondent Trey Yingst Iran will, quote, be blown off the face of the earth if it intervenes in Project Freedom. U.S. Central Command says it destroyed 6 Iranian boats targeting civilian vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. 2 U.S. flagships also successfully passing through the strait, marking an early sign that shipping traffic is resuming in the critical waterway.
All right. So basically what I wanted to highlight was the mixed messaging. And, in my opinion, there's a number of reasons why I think this happens. But I want to toss this over to you, Top. First off, what do you think about both takes on what's currently happening?
Well, everything has to come with some nuance these days, but these days nothing comes with nuance. So everything is given as an authoritative, this is what's happening, and either it's bad or it's good, or, I mean, everything's got some kind of slant. There's no doubt about it. The thing that's the thing that's amazing to me is that all of the things that they're saying are true. The problem is you got to really take time to put it together. Like President Trump says Iran wants to make a deal. Well, there's a certain group in Iran that, hell yeah, they want to make a deal because they might be president or they might get some power there. I'll capitulate. Hey, you know, whatever. And there's also a group of hardliners. There's some Red Dawn, you know, Wolverines over there that were in the IRGC that are they're still shooting stuff out, and they're still, you know, they're still wanting to fight, you know, and it's really, you know, so there's both sides. Like they said that they fired on these boats. Yeah, they did. Some, you know, crazy Wolverine. They took it out, and we're fighting for our, you know, a homeland. I mean, I get it. And so both sides can be true. I want to just throw something in here that I learned the other day. I watched the Missile Defense Command podcast where they were talking about, you know, they're focused on what we need to buy next, basically. And I'll tell you, one of the things they said that really got to me, they said, one of the guys said, if I was an IRGC commander, I would have hit 8 out of my top 20 targets during these past few battles. I didn't know that at all. And they talked some specifics. It was pretty wild. So there's all kinds of stories that can be told out there, that it just depends on who wants to hear what story. That's what you find. We all go look for what we're looking for.
What do you say on the topic, Nate?
On the topic of your friend, that little bit on the left, you were saying, and his question was, do we ever disagree, or do we ever have any other passion somewhat against what the president says or doesn't say? Absolutely. I just told my wife yesterday, watching the news, watching this cycle over and over again, he needs to stop saying Iran is ready to make a deal.
Right.
Iran is begging to make it. You know what?
Right.
I've been hearing that for 2 months, my friends.
Right.
And it's not happening. So you're saying it, Mr. President, but it's not, it's just not happening. Okay. I don't see them wanting to make a deal. Like Will said, sure, there's a handful that really want to. I believe there's a population out there that really want to reach out. They cannot reach out because they are not armed, which kind of went off the edge there a few weeks ago. We kind of didn't hear any more about it, but supposedly the Kurds took the thousands of weapons that we were prepared to give the Iranian civilians to stand up against their government. But that's another topic for another story, I guess. But good to go back what we originally talked about. Yes, there are things that I wish the president would just dial back on. This dying to make a deal, it needs to stop for a little while. Let's see some results, and then we'll go from there. I think results are in a grasp right now, a very close grasp. I really do.
You know, my take on it is kind of hard lined. If we were to rewind the tape and go back to what I was saying when we first claimed that we destroyed their military, it was time for us to get up out of there, right? Like, I think that was the perfect time to back out, claim victory, and at least let other people get some skin in the game. And what I mean by that is, if we all look at the total strategic moves that this administration and the Secretary of War and our whole Defense Department, which is now the War Department, started off making, you know, we started off with Venezuela. We secured our region. We secured our resources, right? And we are actually self-sufficient. There's nothing over there that directly, you know, puts us in an insecurity phase. And, you know, my hard position is that this is us more so trying to be the world's police, right? And then as far as like him getting caught out, constantly repeating himself on the topic of, oh, there's a deal coming, and we won the war then. We won, like all of that stuff kind of, like I said before, in my opinion, makes us look weak in a way. And my biggest problem with him is the fact that he wants to be liked way too much instead of just going hardline on some of the things that I think that he should have went on. Now, I'm sure that you disagree, Top. You know what I mean? And Nate, you probably have something that you want to throw in on that too. But in my perspective, I think it's one of those things where I heard somebody say something that was kind of funny. It was talking about the eye for an eye thing, in the Old Testament. And another guy was like, yeah, an eye for an eye means that you waited for the person to actually do something to you, then you return the favor. And he was like, I advocate more for the minute that they show intent to take my eye, I eliminate the problem. I'm of that characteristic. Now, I'm not privy to all of the information that comes across this man's desk, and nobody really is, other than what he's getting informed on and what his intel is, But the reality of it is the decisions that he's making are being broadcast, and some things he can hold to himself. He doesn't have to speak on everything that he's planning or doing. And I think that comes from him wanting to get approval so much. So he wants to constantly keep people up there. He wants to be this transparent guy. But then there's times where you just can't be transparent. So sometimes it's best to be honest and say, I can't speak on that right now. But it's always, we got it taken care of. We got this. We can't speak on that right now. Sometimes that might be the best course of action. Well, what you got, Top?
Hey, look, I am excited about what's happening. Okay. Trump can talk big, he can talk soft, he can whatever, but I believe that actions speak louder than any of the words that are happening. Okay. He's a bombastic. He's always trying to be funny. He always thinks he's the funniest, best looking guy in the room. Yeah. He is, except when I'm around. And so I get it, and so I understand where he's coming from, right? If you look at life from that way, then you're able to say, hey, I'm this character and I'm doing this and I'm good at playing this game. And I'm going to tell you, I have been digging deep into the things that are happening. Okay. He's going to go see the Chinese leader soon.
Yep.
He and Putin have been talking. Yep. Kim Jong-un or the little rocket man, whatever he's been quiet. He's recently told South Korea, hey, you better step up.
Yep.
We have the deepest alliances we have anybody with the Australians and the New Zealanders. Yep. Okay, this world is changing. Yep. And what I believe is about to happen is certain countries are going to begin to take care of their own area. And I see it happen. I'm seeing Cuba come under some help from us, whether they're their own country, whatever, they're going to beg us for help because we have cut the things off. And the reason is from Trump's strong leadership. This war is over. The ceasefire is holding. It's only these little yo-yos that are out there that it's neat to see our Secretary of War get up there and his right-hand man deflect and say, no, this is not a reason that we bomb or nuke them. This is little rats that are out there just messing around. We'll get it covered up. We're leading them through the strait. The reason that Trump changed his mind about the Strait of Hormuz plan is that Iran agreed to some things and said, okay, yes, we'll show you this or we'll show you that. They're beginning. And I'm telling you, man, I am excited for the future of America. Make America great again has gone to make Iran great again, make Cuba great again, and, make Venezuela great again.
I would have never thought.
The thing, Ray, though, that you and I, the thing that Ray, you and I should be happy about is that it allows then you and I to unite. Okay. And it allows the other people in our country to unite. It allows you to be an American and be proud and not have to we can stand strong and we can build things. And yeah, it's one thing to have the biggest missiles and the most precise missiles in the world in space and all that stuff, but you can also be strong enough to be kind to others and build something. And I truly believe that Trump is doing that and telling the old world order, or whatever the new world order is, or whatever Bush and Cheney and all those yo-yos were Brown and rooting into to go to hell. And Trump is being a real leader, like my dad voted for. My dad's proud. My mom's proud of what's happening.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's wild you say about us building inside, and that's something more that I want to dig into on a later topic. But do you guys realize that what I just played for you from Meet the Press, right, was 2 days ago?
Mhm.
They didn't even cover what just happened last weekend with the third attempt on Trump's life. There's a lot of radicalization that is happening in this country that's tearing us apart on the premise of what they think this man is saying, or what they're trying to portray this man is doing on a nonstop basis. And I find it hard to find a way to really consolidate our Americas, right? We're having two separate Americas that are forming right but before us. One America is where one, like you speak of, you and I are building. No race, color, creed. It's content of character. It has nothing to do with envy or jealousy. It's all about merit. Wake up, work hard, push the American dream, chase the American dream for your family and your friends, and connect. And then there's another America that is brewing where it's all about envy. Oh, they have more than me. Oh, I can't take it. Stuff is so hard. Somebody needs to take care of me. It's a lot of this being disheveled. How do you think we get past that without turning into Iran? And what I mean by that is there's a clip that's coming up, and that you shared with us offline a couple days ago, and I think it's well worth the play for our time. And I want you guys to hold and think about this question I'm leaving y'all with before I play this clip. Audience, bear with us, but it's very important to play this and get context of what we're talking about. This guy here, Chase Hughes, if you want to pull this up top, his name is Chase Hughes, and he is independent YouTuber. He's done a very good job of explaining and expressing how Iran decayed from what would be considered a first world nation in the 70s and a very modern nation just like us from the 70s to where they are at now. And I see a lot of parallels and have seen a lot of parallels with them and many other countries that take on authoritarianism, fascism, dictatorship, and mostly Marxism and communism, which we see prevailing in our academic elites right now. And when I play this, I want even the audience to think, how do we avoid this outcome and create more of the reality that Top was just explaining?
We've got to talk about Iran. If you think Iran has always looked like this, I want you to pause for a second, because that belief didn't come from history. It came from just a bunch of repetition. There are people that are alive right now who grew up in Iran wearing jeans, listening to Western music, going to universities, falling in love openly, and then they watch their entire country just snap into something unrecognizable. And I think the part that most people miss is that Iran didn't evolve into this. It was taken. I've done several deployments across the Middle East, and you don't survive that without learning one critical distinction that I think all the headlines just completely erase, and the difference between a people and the system that cages the people. That's a big distinction I want to make right here, and this applies to all countries. But what you're seeing right now, the protests in Iran, the crackdowns, the silence when all the internet went dark the other day, that looks like chaos. That is memory colliding with fear, and I want to prove it to you. And once you understand how that collision happens, I think you're going to realize Iran is not an exception Iran is a preview for the rest of the world. So what we're going to talk about is not a big story about religion. It's not even a story specifically about Iran. This is a story about how any modern educated civilization gets psychologically hijacked without realizing it until it's way too late. And by the end of this, you're going to see exactly where the takeover happened and the 3 paths that Iran is likely to take here in the next few months. In the 1960s and 70s, Iran was secular. They were educated and they were culturally just alive. Tehran looked more like a European capital than a caricature of the Middle East. Women in Iran were doctors and lawyers and professors, and universities there were world class. So art and music and science were all just thriving in Iran. This was not a primitive society that was just waiting for someone to modernize them. They were already modern. And that detail matters a lot because it destroys a very convenient myth to the media. This idea that Iran's current state, where they're at right now, is some natural expression of Iran's culture. It is not. So what happened to Iran wasn't some cultural evolution. It was complete takeover, like an interruption. So first, the Shah, this is Mohammad Reza Shah, ruled with a lot of Western countries backing him, lots of oil money, and he got increasingly authoritarian, and corruption started growing, as it always does, even here in our country. All the dissent was crushed, and people started getting very, very resentful over time. And into that little pressure, and maybe in that void, this guy steps up that most people outside Iran still don't fully understand. And this is Ayatollah Khomeini. He is a cleric who's living in exile, and he didn't sell himself to everybody as some tyrant, but he wore this costume of being a liberator. So the revolution that happened in 1979 was not sold as religious extremism. It was sold as a moral cleansing. We need to morally cleanse the country. We need more justice. We need independence. It was sold as independence. And that was the first big psychological trap. And this is how civilizations get hijacked. All these revolutions that you see, it's not overthrowing power. What's really being shifted is who is allowed to use violence. That's the only thing that shifts. If you look back at this, who is allowed to use violence? That's every revolution. So once the Shah fell, the Islamic Republic didn't emerge overnight. It consolidated, and it was a slow, pretty methodical process. And the biggest leverage that they had was belief. They didn't use religion as a weapon. They used fear. So it was fear being used here, not religion. And it was a fear of, I'm going to be outcast. I'm going to be looked down on or judged. I'm going to be labeled immoral. I'm going to be on the wrong side of history. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be lonely. So all these little new public rituals became compliance tests. And then speech became dangerous. Silence was a new way to just survive what was going on. So once belief becomes mandatory, truth becomes a liability. And that's the quote that you can write down for all psyops. If belief becomes mandatory, truth is a liability. So the Iran-Iraq war hardened everything like crazy. All kinds of sanctions came after this. The economy strained, surveillance got just ridiculously normalized. And informants, like people just telling on their neighbors, it just became ordinary. So an entire generation grew up knowing exactly what not to say, how to stay silent. And another grew up knowing nothing else. And here's the part that I think most people outside miss. This system that we're talking about in Iran didn't survive because all the people believed in the system. It survived because people learned how to live inside it, and they just treated it like it was a normal way. And suffering became just this thing that we go through in life. And that works until it doesn't. And you can see this in every country. So what happens is authoritarian systems don't collapse when people rebel against them. They collapse when their version of a story stops working on the people. So look at right now. There's people in the streets. They're fighting. They're rioting. There's all kinds of violence going on. Look very closely at who is protesting today. They're not extremists. They're students. They're professionals. They're descendants of an educated class. A lot of these people grew up hearing stories of a very different Iran. And this is through their parents, through photo albums. If you look at pictures of Iran in the 1970s, the 1960s, it is going to blow your mind. The memories that are just kind of smuggled through time, filtering their way into the kids. So these protests, these people aren't asking for something new. They're asking for something that was stolen from them. And that is a massive distinction. And it's very important because if you have a population that remembers itself, suppression becomes extremely hard. And I'm going to say that again. When a population remembers itself, suppression becomes extremely hard. So now if you layer in the modern psyops battlefield, we have internet shutdowns, narrative fragmentation, foreign news amplification. We have this information scarcity from Tehran. When communication disappears, control increases, but confusion goes through the roof. And confusion is very useful for people like this because psyops don't usually create movements. Think about this. Psyops is not designed to manufacture movements. It's made to hijack movements that are already in progress. It's a lot easier that way. So you don't need to invent anger when it already exists. You just need to redirect it, to fracture it in another direction. And that's what makes this moment right now very dangerous and so unpredictable. So Iran is under pressure from every direction at one time. They have economic collapse that they're facing. They're facing generational defiance, massive elite corruption, a lot of global scrutiny. They've got to obviously have a shitload of oil. Pressure does not guarantee change, but pressure always reveals the cracks every time. That's why I talk so much about paying attention to pressure. And this brings us to what actually matters right now. And this is what's going to matter to our lives here in the Western world. It's not what's happening right now that's important. It's what's going to happen next. And I think there are three paths that might happen here. Path number one is the iron fist. And it's the most familiar. The regime survives by hardening up. More repression, more surveillance, more arrests, more of these internet blackouts. So fear replaces legitimacy completely. It's just a rule by fear and it's worse than a dictatorship. So these people are complying because of the cost of dissent. So Iran doesn't change outwardly. It becomes probably, I would say, more brittle inwardly. And this path can last years, but it guarantees that it's going to rupture again in the future. So path number two is a fracture from within. And this one's a little bit quieter, and it's probably more realistic than people want to admit. So this is where the system splits. The elites start negotiating survival. All these reformist people and super hardline people quietly realign with each other. And you'll start seeing controlled reforms appearing. And it's just because they're super necessary. So it's an internal triage that the country kind of does on its own or with some help. But history shows this path very often emerges when insiders fear losing everything more than they fear change. So the country shifts, but slowly, probably carefully, and incompletely. And path number three is the break point. This is a rare path, but I think it's very possible, but it's also the most dangerous. This is where the psychological barrier collapses. So enough people start believing in the system, including all these parts of the security apparatus, and the monopoly on violence starts to fracture. That is when regimes fall really fast. And it's not because the protesters out there are super brave and badass. It's because the enforcement, the people doing the enforcing on the protesters, stop believing. This is the path that leads to chaos or rebirth or maybe both. And nobody ever controls how it ends. The real takeaway here is Iran isn't just a warning about religion. It's a warning about what happens when fear completely replaces consent of people and narrative completely eclipses and replaces legitimacy. This is about Iran losing its ability to say no quietly over time. The heaviness that I feel just talking about this, it's not just about Iran. what we're talking about here when it comes to psyops, this is about what any society becomes when stories matter more than people. It's when a population forgets who they are. Somebody else is going to absolutely decide who they are. And once you see that mechanism, you're going to start seeing it everywhere, and you'll watch it play out here in the next few weeks with Iran. Hope it all goes well. See ya.
All right. I think that was very well put together. If you guys have watched that and liked that, please go and check out Chase Hughes. All credit to him for that video. It was well put together. You know, a lot of what he talks about reminds me of George Orwell, 1984, Brave New World, all of that good stuff that we have been warned about for over a
Mhm.
century now. And one of the biggest things that ring true in my mind is the BLM riots, the Antifa riots, the whole COVID lockdown. You know, we lost friends over COVID shots. There was people calling the police in certain states over COVID shots. People were
Mhm.
losing their livelihoods and being brainwashed over this stuff. And it's like you see this believe the science cult that don't realize that science is about asking the questions. You know, so before I get to run off in a tangent, Nate, what's your take on what's your take on that, man? How do you think that we come back and avoid this reality, even though it kind of seems like it's staring us in the face?
Keep voting Republican. That's about as clear as I can make it. I've been thinking about that answer ever since you started that clip. And then let me clarify that so our audience understands where I'm coming from. We already have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have that regime particles in our country's society right now. We have it in the three branches of government. We don't necessarily have it in the executive branch. Thank God. That's what we need to protect. And we're seeing it happen right now with the Trump administration in particular. We have it in the judicial branch. Okay. There are people in the Supreme Court right now, one in particular, that cannot define what a female is or what a woman is.
Yeah.
Definitely in the legislative branch. We have legislators, lawmakers right now that actually hate our country and everything it stands for and everything it was founded on. Fact. So we have it right now. All your blue states, all your blue cities, for the majority of them, and I shouldn't even say majority, I'll just go right back and say all of them. We see it every day. The riots taking control. It's in academia. It's been in academia for decades, but it's now going down into the K through 6 or pre-K through 6. I mean, It used to just start at the university level. Now it's going down in the elementary school level. It's in entertainment. It's everywhere. So we have to maintain a strong executive branch. The last administration allowed it. Actually, I have to say, the last administration in particle, it started under Obama. The executive branch, it was pouring into the executive branch too, pouring into the military, pouring into the former Secretary of Defense. You know, putting in trans and doing the DEI within the military. So it was bleeding into the executive branch with cabinet members. Okay, it bled into Department of Transportation. It bled into the Treasury Department. People were being hired by their identification, by their gender identification. Okay, by their identification period. People weren't put in place for their merit. And so we just need to maintain our executive branch because it's already here, ladies and gentlemen. We have it here. We just got to keep fighting it off like we're doing right now. Can you imagine if Kamala would have won that election? We probably wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. You know, we'd be sitting here wondering where our next meal was going to come. And I'm not putting a fear factor in. I'm just telling you the reality of what you just saw with the Iran thing. That was happening in our country slowly, but actually rapidly at the same time. Go ahead.
Yes, I totally agree. I 1000% agree. My opinion, I mean, it's something as simple as look at what's happening in Illinois. These people do not realize that their policy does not work. They just voted and passed $25 an hour minimum wage. You know, that kind of hits to the point of last video top. You said the best way to get people to start loving this country again was to make sure we start creating new homeowners. I think that the crazy part about that is it's not necessarily something that could be achieved politically to create new homeowners. I think the market needs to be unchained to create new homeowners, and the ethos and education and propaganda, if you want to say it. We propagandized everything else. LGBTQ. We propagandize all of this free spirit stuff. We even propagandize the socialist stuff. Why don't we propagandize capitalism, self-respect, and ownership? Uh,
Mhm.
so
We are
go ahead, Top.
so we are the I don't remember the name of it, but Invest Trump or some kind of gold plan. Recently, it was announced. They did a big
Yep.
announcement that if you're having a child and you sign up, that private industry will partner with you to fund a successful child.
The Trump
It's
accounts. Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is, but
What I
it's
more so mean is propagandized into our media, our children, because I think government needs to step out. The more the government plays with things, the more that they're putting their hands on the levers of things. This is just like the 2008 crisis, because in 90 in what was it 2001, before Clinton got out, he helped with the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac stuff. It got worse during the Bush years, and then we had the crash because so many people had subprime loans and didn't have no reason to have these houses. They couldn't afford them on paper. So
Yeah.
I think one of the things is you can't force these type of things. You have to let the market figure it out.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was done was exactly what you're talking about. It was private investors. It was not the government. Okay, this isn't some government program that was run. This is families basically partnering with people that have wealth that are willing to bring up and help fund their children. It is not the government. It is exactly what we would hope that our local communities are doing. The
Okay, I
Trump
haven't heard about
America thing, it is amazing.
Yeah.
It is
It's happened.
really
got-
cool.
You could just
Oh,
go
wow.
online if you have a child and they're born from 2024, or I'm sorry, 2025 to 2029. They can fall under the program, and you can go online. You have to apply for it, and then your child automatically gets $1,000 into a savings account that is untouchable until they're 18 years of age. And yes,
wow.
it gets funded. It gets funded by CEOs and billionaires from other companies, AT&T. I
That's
can go
big.
on and on, man. Yeah, it's huge.
That's big. That's
Yeah,
big.
I got a couple
That's-
friends that
that's-
applied for it.
Yeah, that's the type of stuff. Yeah. We need
Yeah,
a lot
not-
more of that. Lot more. Of that.
At every level. Okay, so and at every level, those things are happening. But unless you're looking for it, the media doesn't talk about it. The media downplays it.
Right.
They have a
No.
different agenda. That's why we have to talk about our heaven. We have to talk about the things that are good that we're seeing, right? If I don't jump up and down and talk about the Trump America, Trump Saved, Trump Kids Act, or whatever they called it, then nobody knows, and we think that it's the opposite. I'm telling you, there are great things that are happening in our country from private donations, great things where companies are investing in our people. We're building things left and right for our citizens to grow, and I see that happening. The media is all about a click. The only way they make a dime is to get a click, and the only way they did a click is to cover every story. The only stories that get clicked on are the ones that are sensationalized and are in some way not what they seem to be, or they drive some kind of Trump derangement syndrome or whatever.
And I failed to mention the media when I was talking about the branches of government and academia and education and all that stuff. I forgot to obviously one of the biggest is the media.
Yeah.
So
I think that they have been playing a great psyop. But my thing is, speaking of the media, we had an argument breakout with Fetterman last night about him possibly switching over to the Republican Party. I don't really think that would be a great idea, but the reason why I bring it up is because the media is already trying to turn his voters against him. When in my reality, this guy has been the best middle of the road fence sitter I've ever seen in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think more individuals like him need to be uplifted and pointed out, even though I disagree with a lot of his voting record. You go down his voting record,
Yeah.
he's a liberal. All right. But he's a reasonable person. And I think a healthy government is not one side or other. I think we need representation from the Democrats. But the problem is the Democrats aren't real anymore. They're not they're not the 90s Democrats.
Mm.
They're not even Obama era Democrats anymore.
No.
These are the Seattle mayors. These, I forgot her name, Christine, whatever. These are the mayors in Chicago, Brandon Johnson. These are the congressmen all up and down New England. I mean, these people have really lost their damn mind. And they are trying to rob our country blind of its natural inheritance, which is all of our inheritance, truthfully.
Yeah.
People before us worked hard for these freedoms and liberties to be able to own property. And now they're talking about nationalizing. They're talking about tax, death tax. They're talking about all of these extra things that actually crush these incentives, like what you just talked about just a minute ago, Top. America's New Deal that Trump is trying to push. These are beautiful things, but we have a populace that is hook, line, and sinker on this left-wing thing. How do we reel them in when they're like this the whole time? When you're trying to tell them these things,
We have to start selling more stuff. Like, I hate to say it, man. I don't hate to say it, but some of our audience will hate to say it because they're going to go, well, there he goes again. But we have to start getting people hooked on watching Fox News, man. And I don't mean like hooked, like addicted to it, but people need to start watching a little bit more conservative. I know you disagree, Will, but I'm telling you, if I don't, you go ahead and I'll flip on CNN the same time I'm watching the assassination attempt 2 weekends ago. And I'll look on CNN and you won't hear a fucking word about it until 7 o'clock the next morning. And you might get 30 seconds of it. That's about it, man. And then the second part you'll hear about it on MS Now is it was pushed on Trump's rhetoric, man. That's what I'm talking about. You're only going to get these stories. You're only going to find out about the Trump accounts for these newborn babies. You're only going to find out about them if you watch an hour a day of Fox News. And I'm not saying get on Fox News and watch Fox News all day. I'm talking about if you just watch an hour in the morning of Fox and Friends from 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning, man, you'll gain a lot of information that you will not see anywhere else.
this is true.
Go ahead, Will.
What
Go
you
ahead,
got,
Will. I'm
Top?
sorry, Will.
What you got, Top?
So well, in my opinion, what we really need to do, and I'm the pot calling the kettle black, but we need to stop watching any of the TV stuff, and we need to get in the flower bed, and we need to plant flowers, and we need to get on our running shoes, and we need to go jogging, and we need to turn off the boob tube and all of the stuff, and that's connecting with our neighbors. Every time we spend any time really listening to any of the media, we're wasting our time, because it's not something we can be informed about it, but we can't go overboard about it and let us get upset about it.
This not to try to cut you off prematurely, but I totally get where you coming from, Top. I really do. A couple episodes ago, I was like, that's that ideal shoulda, coulda, woulda stuff, man. I love you, Top. I love you to death. But I don't feel like you should disconnect. All right. Like, I think the only way you make true change, I think Trump got reelected this time is because so many people were connected. Right? Like that was what got him connected. Now, I do say that the big conglomerate, media conglomerates, you got to balance that shit out with shit that has nothing to do with them. Fox, CNN, MSNBC. Only thing that I really hold dear is the live hearing, C-SPAN. I take that as gospel because that's playing out right in front of your face. You're hearing all the Supreme Court hearings. You're hearing the interrogations. You're hearing what legislation's being passed. All of that stuff, or your county's actual hearings. They post it online all the time. My biggest favorite thing that I'm coming across that has been a new phenomenon for the last 8 years is independent media. All right. Like, there's so many people out here doing the work, doing the groundwork. you know, and bringing stories to life that the media won't ever show you, right? Like, we just did it right now. We're covering Trump's new plan. How many people that might see this might end up going to researching Trump's new plan and how they can sign their babies up? So I think this is a very important medium that we're creating right now, and that everybody is doing on their own. We don't have to be beholden to anybody with this information game anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's good to take all. The last thing I think that we should do is stick our heads in the sand and not see what's coming to us. I think that's how people end up like they ended up in Iran, because they were uninformed populace. Same thing as Venezuela. They were uninformed populace. These places that had prosperity and turned into shit is usually because the populace was very uninformed and very emotionally driven. And it's one thing to be emotionally driven and informed, but to being emotionally driven and uninformed, now you're just a bullet that has no name on it. You just get directed by whoever holds the gun. So one of the best examples of what we're talking about is this guy here, Nick Shirley. I love this guy. He covered what's going on in Cuba on the Pat Bet David podcast the other day. I want to play a little bit of this, and we can dive into this topic. It leads directly into the next topic we got. I want to cover what the ideas of what's about to happen in Cuba and what it looks like. But Nick Shirley took a trip. This is not the actual video. Everybody watching, go and look on Nick Shirley's video. He had a video while he was in a hotel hiding from security, hiding from the damn generals there trying to lock him up because Cuba's a communist country and they don't want all information coming out of there. But it's new individuals like this that give me the hope that our future is bright. This boy is 23 years old. He's all over the world doing live man on the street interviews with people everywhere, and he brings the information back to us. This is the new medium. Damn the big box media. I mean, give them earplay, take bites and pieces if you need to, but chew the meat up and spit out the bones. That's how I look at the media. This is the
So what is this one video that you have here with you and the fellow in the car?
Yeah, so this is the intro to the video that's going to be coming out in the next
The video's
days.
not been dropped yet.
The video's not been dropped yet.
Okay, so people are seeing clips that's not public yet.
No, you're actually the first person who's ever seen this.
Okay, so what is this? What do we see in this clip?
So I'm driving around with a tour guide and the intro, and then you'll see some other clips building up to it, and then I'll show you guys the gas stations as well.
Let's see it, Rob. Let's see it.
What percentage of people do you think are suffering here in Cuba?
La mayoría. La mayoría.
What's your thoughts on communism? ¿Qué piensas de comunismo?
De lo más malo que ha existido en la vida ha sido el comunismo.
Wow, so they're that public
Porque
about it.
realmente ninguna comunista.
None of the
This
gas
guy
stations
was.
are even in operation right now because there's quite literally no gas.
And we stand out like sore thumbs here, so they're wondering why we're here with cameras, interviewing people. They want to know what's happening and what
Who's he?
people are saying. That's why people are not
Like
talking.
Under security?
They're asking why are we trying to leave the hotel early. Cuba right now is facing one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world. Cuba's government is a one-party communist-ruled country, and they are facing massive food shortages, daily blackouts, and a lack of medicine. And right now, a U.S. blockade is restricting oil and gas from coming inside of the country. With communism and socialism on the rise in the West, I wanted to see what life in communism is really like firsthand, as Cuba has been.
Look at the cars. You see the cars?
Yeah,
They got
wild,
nothing
right?
but 50s cars because they can't get anything else. We don't have everybody go check that out if you get a chance. I wanted to touch on this topic before we run out of too much time. We got these things happening right live in effect. We got communist mayors and governors coming all over our country right now, getting elected from Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Chicago, Seattle. Where else? All of it. California's commie state. That's California. All right. I think informed populace that are taking the time to watch stuff like this, to inform their mind on what's actually happening in the world, is a benefit to our voting base, because we live in a society that the vampires can't come in unless you invite them in the house. And right now we have a populace that is uninformed and inviting the vampires in. And like you said earlier, Nate, they're voting so much blue in these places, and they don't know why their lives are becoming the way they are, but they run to other states afterwards and continue the voting patterns that they left from, and they don't connect that, yo, I voted for all of this blue stuff up here, but I'm leaving for economic opportunities to go to North Carolina or Georgia or Florida or Alabama. I'm going for economic opportunities there because the businesses left there where I just came from, but they can't put two and two together of what is driving this, and then they go to the next place and they turn it blue or purple. So my
Not
thing
all of
is,
them.
not all of some, yeah,
No.
not all of them.
There's
Not
some
all
people
of
that do change and they
Yeah.
take advantage of the change.
Yeah.
I'm sure
This
there
is
has to
true.
be.
Can I
Yeah.
tell y'all about something that happened to me recently that was like, it was confusing. I didn't know what to do. I thought I was doing the right thing. I had a dog that was not my dog. It was, for all practical purposes, my daughter-in-law's dog, but it wasn't my daughter-in-law's dog. It was my daughter-in-law's dog who her friend asked her to hold a couple years ago, and it got kind of with her. And anyway, long and short of it, we had this dog we were trying to get rid of. It was a great dog. No big deal. I mean, good dog, good, but it was not our dog. It was, we needed in our life right now, no dogs. And
Right.
so I posted on Facebook, all the great attributes of the dog we had and all the kind of things and rehomed, blah, 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 blah. And so I put it out there on Facebook. Well, my daughter-in-law came in not shortly after that and said, did you charge a rehoming fee? And I said, a rehoming fee? What do I need to charge a rehoming fee for? She's like, well, if you don't charge a rehoming fee, they'll use it as a chase dog and you dog predators, and they'll use it for dog fights and stuff. And I'm like, it's a Cocker Spaniel. And I mean, it's an old, and she's like, well, you better, So then there was like 4 or 5 people on Facebook. The first question, is there a rehoming fee? And I was like, well, okay, maybe that's the thing, right? So I posted, $20 rehoming fee. He's neutered, all the, potty trained, all the, but just included a $20 rehoming fee for, okay, whatever. Let's make sure he doesn't get used as a bait dog. Well, then somebody else posted that it wasn't enough, that how dare I not love the dog enough to choose only $20 to rehome the, and I was like, what in the world have I got myself into? And then another person talked about how stupid it was to do a rehoming fee and how that would never help. And I was just like baffled at how many ways you can think of something that it's just really why what happened to having a person have personal responsibility to go through that. And if you think the person's a creep, you don't give them the dog, and I don't know. It's just, is that weird?
How did you mess up in it? That's what I'm waiting on. How did you mess up in this scenario?
Exactly. I'm like, why is everybody getting on me, telling me like I don't care enough about the dog because I didn't charge more for a rehoming fee, and then people were like, why are you, charging people to take your unwanted dog? I'm like, man, just come get the dang dog, somebody.
Yeah, people are going to hate no matter what, man. You can do the right thing, they're still going to hate, man.
Yeah.
Well, along the topics of what we're talking about in Cuba, I wanted to highlight one, how Trump is planning on doing a drive-by, from what he said.
That's crazy, man. He's like, I would just stop by on the way back.
If you'll share my screen real quick.
Hey, and just so you know, remember I said this before, that the 82nd could very well be used as a staging, a command post for taking over Cuba. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you did definitely.
Cuba, which we will be taking over almost immediately. Now, Cuba's got problems. We'll finish one first. I like to finish a job. On the way back from Iran, we'll have one of our big, maybe the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, the biggest in the world. We'll have that come in, stop about 100 yards from the door, and they'll say, thank you very much. We give up. Thank you, Dan. Good job. An architect who's really talented. He's done a lot of work for him. He's got a flair, a beautiful Hispanic flair in particular. and he comes from originally a place called Cuba, which we will be taking over almost immediately. No, Cuba's got problems.
Marco Rubio said a lot of good things about, you know, the idea of not using military force. But I wanted to highlight that along with how our alliance is breaking down. And after I play these two clips real quick, I want to talk about that as a whole and hemispherically and get you guys' opinion on what shifts are happening globally, right? And what do you guys see coming for us in the future and what this means to the global agenda, all right? So this is a quick clip of all of our U.S. allies, supposedly allies, speaking about this Iran deal.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz followed the lead of other European leaders and savagely blasted US President Donald Trump, saying he has been humiliated by Iranian leaders.
Ich erkenne im Augenblick nicht, welchen strategischen
At the moment, I could tell what strategic exit the Americans are pursuing.
Exit die Amerikaner jetzt wählen, zumal die Iraner offensichtlich
especially since the Iranians are obviously embarrassed.
sehr geschickt verhandeln oder eben sehr geschickt nicht verhandeln. Und die Amerikaner dann nach Islamabad reisen lassen und ohne Ergebnis wieder abreisen lassen. Da wird eine ganze Nation gedemütigt durch die iranische Staatsführung, vor allem durch diese sogenannten Revolutionsgarden.
The deed came after Donald Trump refused to rush a resolution to the war.
I want to take my time. We have plenty of time. And I want to get a great deal. I want to get a deal where our nation and the world is safe from lunatics with nuclear weapons. Yes.
And it wasn't only Chancellor Merz hitting out at Trump. Keir Starmer continues to double down on his rhetoric, distancing himself and the UK from the Iran war.
We'll never let this country be dragged into a war that is not in our interests. Never.
French President Emmanuel Macron has also been a vocal critic of President Trump and the war.
I disagree with them on a lot of topics, but I don't think we'll fix the situation just by bombings or by military operations. Look at what happened with this type of operation in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya. We never delivered. Never. Even after 20 years. So you have to respect the sovereignty of people. If people want to change a regime, they want to react, step up, they can do so.
And outside of Europe, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney also blasted his close ally, saying close historical friendships are crumbling.
The foundations of the international order, the order which Canada helped to build and from which we have long benefited, that order is crumbling. And many of our strengths built on our close ties to the United States have become our weaknesses. The U.S. has changed. That's their right. And we are responding. That is our imperative.
But despite alliances crumbling around him, President Trump and his leadership team remain steadfast in their resolve to play the Iranian war at their own pace, even if it means going at it alone. Secretary of State Marco Rubio lashed out at French President Macron.
The president of France, Macron, goes to China, spends about 6 hours meeting with Xi Jinping, and then on the flight back, he talks to a bunch of reporters. And here's what he told the reporters. He told the reporters, number one, that it's time for Europe to break away from the United States, not to depend on the dollar, not to depend so much on us, to become their own third superpower. The second thing he says, which I found really interesting, was that Europe needs to make sure that they don't get involved in conflicts that are not their conflicts. Specifically, that Europe should not be picking sides on Taiwan between the United States and China. And so I think this is a good moment for us to ask Europe, does Macron speak for all of Europe? Is Macron now the head of Europe? Is he now the most powerful leader in Europe? Because if he is, then there's some things we're going to need to change.
And President Trump expressed his frustration at NATO.
As NATO, I am very, very disappointed in NATO because they weren't there. You know, we spend trillions of dollars on NATO, trillions, in order to protect Europe from Russia. And we've always been there, and we would always be there, and they can't do it without us. And yet, when we wanted a little help, and we didn't need any help, we did it without any help. We didn't really need. And to be honest, I don't even think I've ever said this before, but I really sort of asked them just out of curiosity because I'd like to see if they would be there. You know, we've wiped out, largely wiped out the opposition. If we ever had to keep going, we'd wipe them out very quickly. The rest of it, the remainder. And I hope we don't have to do that, but it may be possible that we do. You know, they have no cohesion. Their leadership is very, very strange. Sometimes you don't have any.
One more clip, real quick. After all of that, Trump started pulling out troops. Now, guess how these people are sounding now?
The German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has desperately backflipped on his criticism of US President Donald Trump after he threatened to remove thousands of US troops from Germany. Merz posted on X, "The Americans are and remain the important partner for Germany in the North Atlantic Alliance. We have a common goal. Iran must not obtain nuclear weapons." He then doubled down, saying Germany will not stop working with the US.
And quote, "I'm not giving up on working with the transatlantic relationship."
All right, you guys get the gist. Why flip-flop so hard, so quick, the minute we give them some consequences, and now they're like, we're never going to stop working with America. I'm kind of confused on
talk.
take. And, you know, in my opinion, we've been there for them no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Like, Ukraine isn't even a NATO state. Got nothing to do with NATO, billions of our tax dollars, and they can't help us with minesweepers, and they don't want to be a part of this, and we're messing up the alliance, and now they're like they'll never stop messing with us. They'll never stop being our allies. I'm confused. What is your take on this, Nate?
I said 2 months ago when all this started, I said it right on this show that it's going to be an end result where we're going to pull troops out of Europe, and it's happening now, and it's not Trump threatening. I got a friend who works in USER right now, and he said there's already orders being distributed from DC right now. So there's units already on orders to redeploy or reflag back here in the United States from Germany. So, I already saw this coming, man, and it's not over yet. Wait till the entire Iran thing, and wait for Trump to come back from China next week, and you're going to start seeing us withdrawing out of NATO completely. That's my prediction. If I'm wrong, I'll come right back on this show and say I'm wrong again. But I knew we were going to start pulling troops, and I knew it was going to start with Germany. And watch, we're going to start pulling them out of Italy and Spain next, because Spain wouldn't even let us use they wouldn't even let us use their airspace, man. So we had to fly all the way around the Mediterranean, and then Italy. Man, we had everybody knows we got an entire combat airborne brigade right there in Italy. We couldn't even use that.
First duty station.
Hell, it was 173rd, baby. Ooh.
Sky Soldier. Yeah, man.
Yeah, yes, sir.
That was sad to hear. Top. How does this connect to Cuba and our hemisphere, in your opinion?
Okay, so look, when we tell Ukraine, look, if y'all are going to fight over there, you got to use some resources other than United States American resources. We're not going to pay it anymore. Somebody else has to foot the bill. That's the first step in this. And then we begin to start cleaning up our stuff, all right? We realized that Venezuela was failing. It was under Cuban control. We went down there and secured and took care of the leader that we had. I mean, he was under indictment for like 10 or 12 years for some crazies. I don't know all the history behind it, but it's not like it was something that didn't need to be cleaned up. And I really believe that Trump is looking Putin in the eye and saying, if you'll do this, I'll do that. You got it? Right. I believe he's looking at Xi Jinping, the leader of China, and saying the same thing. Same with India, Pakistan, all of these guys. All he wants to do is make a deal. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to bomb you, but by golly, it's obvious that, if like somebody starts, he'll finish it up. And in some cases, he'll do it on its own. I am very proud of what's happening. We're going to see a lot of things change.
Three regimes.
health care get better. Let's touch on something just completely out of the blue. I don't know if you know about this, Ray, since you know about the Trump, whatever. Let me see if you know about the medical thing. Okay. So my wife takes one of those shots where she helps her lose weight or whatever, peptides or whatever. There is a huge fight that if you look at over peptides that is so silly about how the larger pharmaceutical people want to control it, but yet these local people could do it just as well and in some way innovate. In some ways they could be, cool chemists, they got all the certifications to do it, obviously, but it was all about control. So what Trump has done is he has taken in every case he could, the people, if they can get out of their healthcare system and make a deal directly with that pharmaceutical company or pharmacist directly for approved medicines already, he's trying to allow that to do that. And so what's happening is people can make their own kind of deals.
Yep.
My wife has done that, and I think it's awesome.
A little bit same on the topic, but they just approved psychedelics, to be cleared. I'm making a lot of moves that are very libertarian, in my opinion. Very libertarian.
Right quick, I'm sorry, Will. Right quick, what you were just talking about, Will, it's just simply called Trump accounts, 530 alpha accounts. And there are tax advantage long-term investment accounts for U.S. children, citizens under 18, offering $1,000 government-funded seed for eligible babies born between 2025 and 2028. And it's managed by the guardians until the child turns 18. But it's simply called Trump accounts. And for our viewers out there that didn't know anything about it, you can go right on and apply right online. And it's I heard it's just a one-page form that you fill out.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's almost like that, man. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm sure you have to apply a social security number, obviously, with a bank or, bank or a birth certificate or something. Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to throw everybody off, but we have a new segment called the sci-fi segment, right? Hey, we're gonna talk about something. Now we got some credible backing on the topic we're about to get to. I don't know if anybody that's watching has been watching the fallout of the scientists going missing. There's a lot of speculation on what they were working on and all of that good stuff. But we have a congressman, Tim Burchett. He's a representative out of Tennessee. All right. The guy's a real good, down to earth guy, in my opinion. But I think it's worth hearing what he has to say about this topic. He says that aliens, there's a lot of evidence. Let me quote him correctly. There's a lot of evidence that we know about aliens and UFOs, and they are here, and they possibly have bases underneath our oceans. So before I misquote him too much, let him speak for himself, and then I'll bring it back to you guys.
Hey, I'm Joe Khalil here with Reality Check for Ross Coulthart. We just sat down with Congressman Tim Burchett for an extended interview on his recent briefing that he got, which he came out of with a sort of different perspective and said, look, if the country were able to see and hear what he saw and what he heard, it would be a paradigm shift. You'll see in the interview here that we let him talk. I asked a question and he really just took it and would run with it. But it was a lot of good insight, a little bit of frustration about why there's not progress more so than there already has been, but a lot of interesting insight from a guy who has now been in the rooms and on the front lines of disclosure. Here is that interview. Congressman, we have heard a lot about this briefing that you got. You've been talking a lot about it. Not in detail of what you heard. Sure. But can you lay out, leaving that briefing, it seems like you were a bit of a changed man after that. Talk to me about what the feeling was after.
I've had multiple briefings, and I guess, you know, I get a lot of doubters and people make fun of me, even members of Congress, which is kind of ironic because there's always the guy in the crowd that's makes a joke about it after somebody else does, and they come up to me and they say, man, I need to tell you something, you know, I'm in the military, or I saw something, or got a lot of people interested in this issue. But and I've had so many of these briefings now. I even had one since the one that you're describing. I had that was a member of our leadership arranged, which tells you the serious nature of this thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just think people need to know what we've seen and what these pilots are seeing. And Luna, for instance, we requested all those videos, and she is, you know, gave kind of a deadline when she'd like to have them by. And she calls over there and they say, well, we don't know anything about the letter, kind of stuff. The same old stuff you and I've run into for years on this issue. And America's just ready. I think they would they'd be alarmed about what it is. And I think mostly they'd be alarmed at why the government won't allow it out.
Yeah.
And what's at the base of it. And you know, all the theories aside, whether you think it's extraterrestrial, if it's something from this earth, you know, if it's the Russians or the Chinese or the Americans, which I don't think it is. And then maybe allow some of the pilots to talk and tell exactly what they've seen. And the last briefing I had, some pretty incredible photos. And I think that you should have the right to see those.
Yeah.
And the critics are going to blast it. You know, they're going to say it's AI, it's whatever. But you got to go back and ask yourself, why would some of the best pilots in the world, why would they risk their credibility to come out with this? Because anytime they make a sighting, a lot of times they'd have to get a psych evaluation and get all this stuff. And even if it's something they saw on radar. But now we've got officers in the Navy seeing these very, very large objects on sonar traveling at a very high rate of speed, something that's exponentially faster than anything we can accomplish. You got to realize that you have an object out there in the ocean that hovers, above the ocean in the air, that hovers for could be hours on end. We have nothing with that capability. You have to you'd run out of fuel. And then when they take off, they just, you know, maybe straight up, and the power to do that is something, the energy it'd take to fuel Los Angeles. I mean, it is that incredible. And I just don't see any reason why our government should be hiding it. And I don't like going into a meeting and an unelected bureaucrat tells us that that the president is on a need-to-know basis. To me, that should be very telling to America that there's a lot more going on with this behind the scenes than we're aware.
And you've heard that directly.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. And you know,
what do you guys think? What is your take, Top, on this whole phenomenon of all of the sightings, the UFOs, I mean, we've been hearing this stuff for well over 50 years, from the abductions to the guys that have fight shootouts underground to, you know, Coast to Coast AM. I grew up on Coast to Coast AM. You know, I listened to that better half of my early 20s to late 30s, man. I was locked in. What is your take on this stuff, man?
So I listened to Congressman Tim Burchett talk to Joe Rogan today for a significant amount of time. That interview just came out today, and I listened to it. Okay. You know, it is amazing the things that they talk about. They talk about being able to attract these alien craft. They talk about having situations where they would, on purpose, put two nuclear items together and something would come observe them. and they began to check it out. He talks about objects that they have real data from that's doing over 300 miles an hour under the water and not making wakes, not doing things. It's crazy. They're talking about deep underwater bases. One of the things that and I've listened to a lot of clips, so I'm putting a lot of things together, but these are real things. The vice president says that he thinks they're demons. Okay. Burchett directly says, I don't think they're demons. And what he says is interesting. He goes, demons could probably appear anywhere. We're seeing these things only in the deepest parts of our ocean. You know, we're seeing them in specific spots. He's talking about deep underwater bases. Apparently, a group of pastors were brought together in Tennessee a few weeks ago and briefed by government officials about preparing their congregants for three things. Some type of a lizard kind of like race. 2, otherworldly materials that they don't quite know, and evidence of otherworldly craft that have been out there. And so you take all of this stuff and you put it together, and you got the president saying, hey, you know, some people say there's aliens. You know, I don't say that, but some people say they are. We're going to release the news as much as we can, you know. What we're going to find out is that, and what Burchett says, is that our private companies, our defense contractors, have had pieces and parts and technologies and a lot of this stuff, and they know what's going on behind the scenes, and somebody in those organizations have access to stuff that is otherworldly. But also there's other things going on. There are some kind of other people that can come in and out of this dimension and are somehow watching us, and there are other alien races and different whole like the Bible says there are princes and principalities that you don't yet understand. I think some of that is what's coming out. You know, you guys remember I'm in my mind I'm in a spiritual world. So this is my spiritual world coming open for me. I'm loving it. This is heavenly for me. I'm not scared of it. It's exciting. Me and my Lord are, you know, praising every minute. You know, I'm walking with Jesus, and Jesus and me, we're looking at aliens together, and I'm cool with that. You know, I got no issues. That's the kind of place where I'm at with all of this stuff. I just wish we'd stop bombing people and start loving people more. And maybe the lizard people will come and show us how to teleport or something.
There you go.
Buddy Tom, if my buddy Tom is in the chat right now, throw a thumbs up, man. I know you loving what you're hearing right now. Hey, I said you and him, same spirit, man. I love you guys. You know, I think, you know, I've had this conversation probably for like the last 25 years of my life, you know, and I don't know, man. It's one of those things where it's like, if they're here, if they are a thing, if the lizard men or the gray men, if they're having this galactic battle all over the place, all of this stuff that we talked about, you know, I can't help but to find myself come back to, well, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? You know, and you know, it's day-to-day things. You know, you got the flat earthers. I used to tell them, yeah, I could find out tomorrow that the earth is flat, and I still go hop in this semi-truck. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that I want to poo-poo the situation, because I think there's just scientifically, there's so much of a high probability that there really are aliens. And from what we know in science, we know just enough to know we know shit. Right? We don't know shit, right? From dimensional, time folding, all of these hypotheses that Einstein had, you know, 60 years ago. My biggest thing is, if we have a congressman out here ringing this alarm, why in the hell aren't these things being disclosed? What is holding us back? Let the people know what's going on. We deserve that. For 50 years, we shouldn't be hypothesizing on things that y'all have testimony over, photo evidence of, videos. I have seen certain videos of, things on sonar going crazy. There was the fighter. Did you see that thing that came out last year? There was a fighter jet video cam of them shooting at something, and the missiles rockets bounced right off of it, and it kept going. I remember that, and at the time when I watched that, all I could do was process it in the carnal, and I totally understand the spiritual where you're coming from, but I processed it in the carnal as far as like, okay, y'all know more than what you're talking or telling, right? And I think that y'all are withholding for various reasons less than alien alien interaction, or should I say alien nefarious interaction, more so on us being nefarious in some kind of way. I looked at it as this is more than likely more probability that there's things that we're doing amongst each other as humans, and I could be totally wrong. I just don't see how you cover these spaces, the light years it takes from the next solar system over, get here just to play peekaboo in the ocean. It just doesn't match up for my sensibilities, but I don't write it off as it impossible because there's a lot wilder things that could possibly happen. You know what I mean? And like you said, if you're a spiritual guy, there's a reason why every pantheon has the same type of characteristics in their multi-theist gods. I think there's an international connection spiritually, whether that's dimensionally, whether that's us coming back from the future. There could be so many different possibilities. I would be more aching to believe that there's humans coming back from the future playing games. Not even playing games, but doing some research before I believe something came from another solar system. And that's where we get into that zone of like, I can't really stand on any real opinion or any kind of personality on it because there's too many possibilities when you get into it. And until I got concrete facts in front of me, I can't make concrete judgments on it.
Yep.
You got anything for it, Nate? On this topic?
Just briefly, real brief. I live my life by the 50 meter and 100 meter target and what affects my household and my life, now, today, tomorrow, and it's oil prices, Iran, midterms coming up in 6 months. That's going to affect stuff, and I want to get out of this Iran thing soon, like everybody else, and get our economy going. That's what affects my life and our household right now. Little stuff like that. It's really not UFOs or other beings, but if it's out there, please bring it to our attention because I'm all about that shit. I really am. I think it'd be cool as hell, man. But I'm 54, man. I've been hearing the same shit for 54 years, man.
Right.
I just, if it's there, man, bring it to us.
Bring it out.
And, bring it out, man. I mean, I'd love it. That'd be a topic to talk all. We'd sit there for 2 weeks talking about that shit, man.
Man,
but
I know you used to be at Alex Jones' head. I can hear how you talking. Yeah, man. I get it, man. I get it. And that's one of those things. That's kind of where I stand at. I think is gutsy of Tim Burchett to put his name and his office on the line with this. But I think some of the things that stand out the most to me about the conversation is it's never anything like he doesn't describe things that we kind of haven't roundabout seen, from the sonar stuff to like what I just talked about the last week of the last year about the shooting of the rocket. All of that stuff has been released. Why don't they release what some of the stuff that he's saying he heard? Because a lot of stuff he says he heard, and all of us know. I believe he believes everything he heard, but a lot of us know people that have this big fish inclination. The big fish story, pass on, or they the stolen valor type people that they took one deployment, but they were in Qatar, and next thing you know, they done drug 5 people away from an IED. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know the guys. And I'm not trying to discredit who they're talking about, but I just think that there's so much vagueness to a lot of stuff, kind of off topic, but it kind of fits the same. Do either of you guys know the name of the guy that got shot down in Iran and we saved him?
Nope.
Why is that? Right? Like, did it even happen? Right? Like, so there's a lot of things in our government, the way that it operates, that I give him credit for even putting his face on the line to even come and bring that to the people. And I think it's worth us even acknowledging because he is a congressman. But at the same time, it's like, why don't you give us some names, man? Tell me who told you this. I want to hear what they got to say. And look at them. I want to dive into it. You know what I mean? Like, other than that, then we're just kind of just, in the air with things. And it, like you said, it doesn't really affect my life and my close targets. What I know that I could taste and feel, what I can have an effect on or not have an effect on. And it's kind of hard to get in that realm too deep without going crazy like I used to be.
Amen.
But yeah, with that, man, everybody stay prayed up, man. We're living in wild times in all different types of ways. I love you guys. Thank you guys for coming up, and showing out. Man, it's been another fun one. Once again, in the NBC room next week, we got some good topics that we're lining up again. Stay tuned, like, share, and subscribe. Keep coming back, and we see you guys in the chat. Talk, say something, engage.
Yes, talk, man.
Yeah.
And go Pistons. Go Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
Marshall in the middle.